Hello again, everybody. I'm going to value one more popular company lately, that being AMD, or as it stands for Advanced Micro Devices, ticker symbol, just simply AMD. So, AMD, if you don't know, there's two main computer chip companies, three, I guess, now if you consider Apple for their mobile, for their laptops, but even they were using Intel recently. Intel's always been the top dog, and until recently, AMD has been creating chips and video graphics cards as well that compete with, I was about to say Amazon, compete with Intel, but at an even lower price. So AMD is definitely a force to be reckoned with, but let's see if their price of, let me refresh this too. Make sure it's the most recent price. Let's make sure their current market price of $93.16 per share is warranted. So I'm going to start off as always going through my CAGRs, as I call them, and I've separated them in past videos. I had them all together. I put a row in between the cash flows and the accounting metrics, as I call them: revenue, earnings before tax, and net income. And since 2015, almost everything has been negative, was negative in 2015, my beginning point. Everything's coming to an error when I do CAGR. But I do have obviously revenue is going to be positive, and it does give me a pretty good growth rate. I've noticed just from eyeballing, the revenue seems to be growing at a relatively consistent rate. Besides, from 2018 to 2019, it didn't grow as much as expected. However, this year I'm projecting them to grow by about 33% in revenue. So, according to what they've done so far, even if you took Q4 out, they've almost already met their 2019 revenue. So that's always a good sign. Okay, so obviously that leaves me limited to just using revenue to have any type of evidence to support a growth rate. So revenue is 14% the past 5 years. Now, I'm going to move on to the perpetual growth rate. AMD's been around a while, is by no means a new company, but it's certainly a growth company. It doesn't pay dividends yet. It's still reinvesting everything, but in 10 years, I feel like AMD is going to be close to maxed out, if not already maxed out. So I went with the 2% perpetual growth rate. Optimistic growth rate. AMD has been recently, I don't have any quantitative evidence to back this up, but recently their products have improved a lot. And they're also not only in the CPU, the central processing unit market, they're also in the GPU or graphics processing unit market as well, which I'm not sure if that gives them an advantage over Intel or not, because Intel can focus on the CPU segment, but still the video graphics cards are a great industry, but they're also competing with NVIDIA in that industry as well, that focuses on the graphical chips. So that's why, optimistic is a super optimistic for me, but 40% growth and whatever you're using to value them. In this case, I'm using the present value of the net income that I project. I'm going to project net income growing at that optimistic rate of 40%, and I'm going to take the present value of that using the terminal value at 10 years when my horizon ends. So pessimistic, I said 10%. Even that pessimistic, in my opinion, is optimistic, because it's barely below their revenue CAGR. The good news is, though, if you look at the profit margin, it has literally gone from negative 16.5% to 5.07%. So even though the CAGR is growing, even though the revenue is only growing at a certain percent, the profit margin can magnify that. So, okay, now let's move down to my discount rate. I always use 12%. At least at this time, I'm always using 12%, because I use that as a hurdle rate because of the average return of the market over the past century or so. Then let's look at the results I got using my optimistic and pessimistic growth rate for the net income, present value of net income. Optimistic, even though I bumped it up to 40%, it only gets me up to $38.36 for me to value this company. Using the actual revenue, the actual CAGR over the past 5 years of 14%, gave me a present value of $6.56. So that is about what they were trading at. I don't know if I'm missing something. I can't warrant the $93 per share. I sold AMD at $13 per share a couple years ago. Really wish I would have held on to that, but I didn't even have that much at the time anyways, because, AMD, they weren't even profitable. They were just about to become profitable, so to me they were still a non-profitable company. So my range comes down to, using the pessimistic, it comes down to $4.71 a share. So my range comes down to basically $5 to $38. And we're well out of that range now, so I can't recommend anyone buying this. I can recommend someone shorting this or selling it if they have it, but that I can't, even in my wildest dreams, I don't see AMD growing that much. Intel is just too much of a force to be reckoned with, and so is Nvidia. Okay, so let's go to financial health now. And financial health doesn't look that bad when it comes to current and quick ratio. Current ratio of 2.28. Well, when you account for inventory, you get a quick ratio of 1.74. Tangible book value, used to be pretty good if I could still get it for $8 a share. That's not bad for a tangible book value. It's because I cannot find intangible assets in their financial statements, so I didn't want to put it in there unless I was 100% sure. But their goodwill was relatively low, as you'll see in the next metric here of intangible and goodwill to total assets, 4%. So their balance sheet is a lot of actual tangible assets. So that's always a plus, especially in a technology company. Free cash flow per share is not going to be that impressive since they just recently became a profitable company, but just out of curiosity, it's 3 cents per share. Okay, now we're going to move over to the projections. There we go. Just a note I put there, I could to remind me maybe when I redo this, maybe in the next 10K I'll be able to find the some actual and a value for the intangible assets. But for recent quarters, revenue is let's see, 17 would be. I'll say it's in Q3 they almost had double their revenue of Q1, but not quite. I project them to have $9 billion in revenue this year. These weightings up here, obviously, if the quarter's already happened, I don't put any weighting towards it, but I put a 20% above average weighting. I'm not sure if I should call that a weighting or just an estimate, but I took the average of the first 3 quarters and then 2% to that. That's just a personal, what I expect to happen from trends and reading news about AMD versus Intel. So my projection comes to be $9 billion in revenue. Net income comes up to $992 million, and a free cash flow of $292 million. So it should be a good year for AMD, because I mean, look at this. This is total so far this year. So even without a Q4, they're looking solid. Almost as much revenue as they had in all of 2019. So should be a good year. And then my new habit I've gotten is I always like to check the, especially like I said on a growth company. Took a little screenshot of their report of independent registered public accounting firm right here. and I saw exactly what I look for. You don't always see it, but when you do, you can be assured that they have audited this and then they gave it an unqualified opinion. Unqualified meaning on everything. Sometimes you'll get a good company and it'll say qualified opinion, which means some things they might not be 100% sure on, but in this case, they're sure on everything. So I'm good to go when it comes to the validity of this financial information. So yeah, that's AMD. Let me know if you disagree. If you do agree, I'd love to get some new information on this, and please like and subscribe. Thank you and have a great day.